Hello guys, welcome everybody to the channel. I hope you're having a terrific day today wherever you are. I wanted to do a little bit of a free flow, some topics that have come up, and I thought I'd give you an opinion in terms of what's going on around the world and the trajectory that we're in. So after the midterm elections of the US for the Senate and Congress, things are about to get a little bit more, I think, aggressive. We're going to see a lot of rapid developments when it comes to different alliances. And I generally do believe that we're not only into an economic freeze right now, a downfall. Of course, we've talked about recession and inflation and the causes, the supply chain, etc. But in this case, I want to talk about the possibility of an upcoming Great War. And as you know, in my previous channel back in April 2021, I predicted the Ukrainian war about a year before it actually happened, only because of certain key indicators, three key indicators that we located in our channel and we analyzed. And I believe that it came to fruition because of these things. So, number one, when we see devaluation of currencies, of goods and services, products, commodities, etc., and we see the value of things that a lot of investors and a lot of people would flock to in order to preserve their wealth, namely gold in this situation, not performing very well. Of course, it's relative to the other commodities. It's done much better comparing to Bitcoin or other things, other commodities in this space. It has done much better, right? But if we look at the overall picture, everything has dropped. Everything has been devalued. Now, of course, that's because of the currencies and the long currency war that has been happening since the Obama administration with QE after the 2008 housing crisis. But in this case, we should be alarmed because this is a key indicator that a greater war will take place. Historically, data indicates that whenever there's a bigger war, you always have devaluation of currencies, commodities, prices, everything. So there's no way you can escape this devaluation, this destruction of wealth. As I've mentioned in my videos, that trillions of dollars will disappear from the system. Now that's a key indicator because a lot of nations around the world on an internal basis. So let's look at two key indicators here, the internal and the external. So internally, a country, when its currency is devalued and the purchasing power of the people decreases dramatically, these socioeconomic issues create tensions, and tensions politically push the government to be a bit more authoritarian in order to silence these movements internally that are either protesting or rioting against what's going on. See Turkey, Lebanon, etc., Venezuela, and more. Externally, though, the country becomes more, the country becomes a little bit more competitive because of its cheap cost and because of its devaluation. Its products and services are competing at a lower price in the market. Now, this creates tension between countries and further polarization. And we've seen this between China and the US. That's one of the main reasons, because China would always mirror the US. They would print, they would cut, but they had relatively a very, very steady interest rate comparison to the US. But that's a key indicator because that could lead to higher inflation and recession, which is going to be bad overall. And unfortunately, in this case, a recession may be inevitable in order to defeat inflation. Now, flag number two, when you have already some tension around different parts of the world that involve more than 1, 2, 3 countries. So in this case, we know that Ukraine has drawn in NATO, a lot of European countries, Canada, the US, etc. So it's fair to say that Russia has not been fighting Ukraine alone, just like we were saying, but it was receiving specialized training for many, many years, a lot of funding, a lot of artillery, arsenal, and crazy weapons there in order to back the Russian influence after 2014 Crimea. So that was a very important thing for NATO to do. Now, when that happens, countries fall into this war, and then you have automatically divisions. Who is with Russia? Who is not with Russia? And in this case, we're seeing the Balkans, the Balkans, which has a prehistory, right, of war, especially in Kosovo. We're seeing right now there is military disputes between the Serbians and the Kosovarians, which are supported by NATO. Serbia, we know, has the strong support of Russia, and also has been receiving some drones from Turkey, which has played double standards, but is more so sliding towards Russia, right? We know the rhetoric of Erdogan against the US, etc., etc. So in this case, when you have the economic downfall, right, very troubling times, and secondly, you already have tensions in certain regions that exist for hundreds and hundreds of years, this creates a very, very fertile ground for eruption, right? Now, the third indicator I would say is more or less technological advancements of opponents of NATO. So in this case, we see China, we see a lot of Asian countries that are having tremendous growth, and the demographics really back this up. Of course, China is going through a bit of a problem for its youth. There's millions of young single males because of the one child policy that they have, that they destroy that equilibrium between females and males. And that's a problem, because if any society has young males who are single and jobless, be careful. Those men usually enter into gangs, become terrorists, or try to find another outlet for their aggression, which doesn't end well for the country overall. But if we look at the demographics in Asia, it's much more favoring a growth in Australia than Europe per se. Now, North America is in a better situation when it comes to that, but the labor force right now is going through many changes as the older generations, the baby boomers, are withdrawing from the labor force. And millennials are in the situation which are going to this transition of acquiring a lot of wealth. And that's why it's going to take many years to see the millennials actually reach their zenith in terms of that. But if you take all of that, the macroeconomic and the political, a lot of religious division that is happening right now in Europe, it's fair to say that there's a fertile ground for a greater war. And this is something imminent, and I believe, in my opinion, we're going to see huge Balkan unrest, and it's going to become quite unruly as it's been divided between those nations that are part of NATO and those who are still holding a strong support with Russia. BRICS, again, very interesting formation, opposes the dollar. Saudi Arabia is pushing back on the US. Iran is trying to maul Saudi Arabia with the drones and missiles, and we know with Aramco, which is a very vulnerable target for the Saudis. So we're seeing a lot of development around the world. That tension is not going anywhere, and just because of the temporarily withdrawn of the Russian troops, that doesn't mean anything. And again, if we go back to our analysis on that, just want to jump here for a second because I think it has a lot of relevance. We never said the Russian war is going to be a blitzkrieg like last a week or two, like a lot of experts were saying. We persisted and we said that this war is going to be a wear and tear, meaning it's going to be about creating obsolete reserves and emptying out all the reserves and trying to reload again and use a lot of tactical weapons that I've not used before, especially Russia. Because I think Russia has a very vast military industrial complex that it can sustain, especially because it has strong commodities, right? But overall, even the winner in the war, and let's say Ukraine would win this war, both countries would suffer casualties. Not only have suffered casualties, but will suffer economically. And I think Russia will take the biggest hit because it will be sort of isolated. And Asia is a place that Russia has an important role to play, but it's not going to be that leading role that it wants to assert itself in. That's my personal opinion. I think that in the West, unfortunately, Russia has some support, but has lost it because, again, the U.S. wanted this. The U.S. is benefiting, and they're in charge of NATO, and many countries are bound to the NATO camp. That's all I had for you guys. Comment below. Please like and subscribe to the channel. Make this channel a bigger place. You know, this is a bit of a free flow. I had lots of topics thrown out there, but these are different pieces of the puzzle that, in my opinion, make sense. And you look at the oil price right now. We've heard with China's consumption of oil is very important for the markets because it affects price. And we've heard from the re-elected Xi Jinping that he is going to continue with this COVID lockdown, this zero COVID policy. That's very important because that's going to affect the supply chain even more, and that might cause inflation to remain on those high levels and not go away anytime soon. So let's see what's going to happen. Comment below. A very interesting developments towards the end of the year, and let's hope that this year ends without a big bam, with a big kaboom. And let's see from the new year what's going to happen. But it's looking like the decade has started with a lot of tension, and it might not end soon. Thanks so much for watching. Bye for now.